At the Track is brought to you by Olin Breweries and the Maritime Harness Racing Track Operators.
Once again to another edition of At the Track, another interesting lineup for you today. We'll take a look at harness racing's version of the pinch hitter. They're called catch drivers in this sport. Stan Bergstein once again is back with us. He will chronicle some of the great champions of the sport from years gone by. Our feature race, the richest trotting race in Atlantic Canada in 1986, the Rothman Sire Stakes for 2-year-old trotters. They went for a purse of close to $11,000. But first, let's take a look at some of the action from around the Maritimes last week. At Truro, the top drivers, 3 wins for Russ Burgoyne and 2 each for Emmons McKay. He did that twice. Bruce McLean, Bernie McCollum, and Mike Worthen. Over to Champlain Raceway, and it was a great night on Tuesday for Danny Romo. He had 4 winners, 3 that night for Mike Downey, 2 for Gary McDonald, and 2 for Walter Chevrolet. At the Charlottetown Driving Park, Albert Bernard comes up with a driving triple. For our racing recap, the Francis McIsaac Memorial raced earlier on in the season, and another champion was honored, late great Rufan Berrio at Exhibition Park in St. John. Bay River Chip, 2 minutes and 4/5 in that event. The other division went to Hidden Intentions in 2:03 and 4. At Charlottetown, Ladies Moldau in 2:11 and 1 over a sloppy track. Down to Truro, Smoke Damage 2:02 and 1, and Super Rhythm in 2:02 and 3. At Champlain Raceway on Tuesday night, HB's Folly 1:59 and 4. That was a new record. Well, the first of what has become a regular feature on Saturday night at Champlain Raceway went last Saturday. It's a $1,500 invitational event, an exciting race. Tidy Point, owned by Roy Goodine of Nackwick and handled masterfully by trainer-driver Mike Campbell, got up in the deep stretch for a 2:01 and 4/5 win over Stoneriggs El Patron and the Papermaker. Here's how that $1,500 feature race looked from Champlain Raceway.
There are Stoneriggs El Patron on the inside with the lead. The Papermaker's up on the outside. He now takes command as they race to the paddock turn. Stoneriggs El Patron moving 3, Tidy Point on the rail in 4. Heels Lad racing 5. Photographer is the trailer. They move on by the opening 8. Out in front, the Papermaker by a length and a quarter. Stoneriggs El Patron racing in 2. Tidy Point is moving 3. Heels Lad in 4. Photographer racing 5. They're by the opening quarter in 30 and 4. Race off the turn, move down the stretch in front of the stand for the first time. The Papermaker out in front by a length and a quarter. Stoneriggs El Patron racing in 2. Tidy Point moving 3. Heels Lad racing 4. Photographer moving 5. They go to the turn positions are unchanged. The Papermaker setting the pace. Out in front a length and a quarter. Stoneriggs El Patron racing in 2. Tidy Point is moving 3. They go on by the half. Race to the back stretch now for the final time. The Papermaker is out in front. Here comes Heels Lad out of 4, driving up on the outside. Now third, now second, and goes after the leader. 1:01 and 2, time to the half. On the inside, the Papermaker by a half length. On the outside, Heels Lad racing 2. Stoneriggs El Patron moving 3. Tidy Point racing 4. Photographer still the trailer. They're in the turn. On by the 3/4 and 1:30 and 2. The Papermaker out in front as they swing round the turn for the final time. The Papermaker still has the lead. Stoneriggs El Patron racing 2. Photographer on the rail, moving 3 at the 7/8. They swing on home. That's the Papermaker out in front. Stoneriggs El Patron on the outside. Tidy Point's 3 wide. They charge to the wire. Stoneriggs El Patron and Tidy Point on the outside. It's going to be Tidy Point. Here they are.
They're harness racing's version of the pinch hitter in baseball, and their role in the sport of harness racing is extremely demanding. They're called catch drivers, and perhaps the easiest definition is they are drivers who don't normally train or own or have anything to do with the horse they happen to be driving. So sitting behind a strange horse is an awful demanding role. You can imagine setting up and you have never seen that horse before except on the track, and you've never sat behind him, and you're going to do the best you can. Ron Shaw has the story of a catch driver.
Okay, gentlemen, let's go.
In harness racing, the person who drives a horse is usually the trainer, but that isn't always possible. When racing card logistics get in the way, the responsibility falls on the catch driver. The catch driver has to have the ability to size up each horse very quickly, something that goes a lot further than just reading the racing program.
You should ask the trainer, because he's the one that, he or her or whoever, are the one that train the horse all the time, and they know all their tricks and their habits. And well, if they get rough gated or if they don't, you know, you should really check them out if you want to do the job right.
But an element of unpredictability remains. That makes a 5/8 track like Champlain Raceway especially attractive for the catch driver. Looser positioning allows changes in strategy. The best way to size up a horse, to classify it, is the claim system. Important as it is to the handicapped bettor, it's vital for the catch driver.
Claiming races help the owners, it helps the bettors, it helps everybody, because the horses are pretty evenly classified and priced. I think that's one of the best things that ever happened in maritime racing, was claiming races.
Number 7, Tracy's Choice, third. Number 8, Denali, fourth. Number 9, Sir Alex Scratch. 29 and 4 to the opening quarter.
Danny Romo is another catch driver. He places a little less emphasis in consulting with the trainer, worrying more about classification and track strategy. For him, being a catch driver means not taking chances with the lineup.
If the best horses are up front end, you know, the ones that look good on the program and stuff, and the ones you think are good, you've got to be up there with them. You can't be sitting back and tail end, and you got to come too far to beat them. Sometimes it's better to be in the middle of the pack if you get, if you get the horse that can move flush out the half and follow and keep good cover. Maybe it's good then, but every horse is different. But you got to be up close to front ends nowadays, because they race hard, they come early and stuff, and it's you can't come right from the tail end now to win races. You got to be up the front end where the action's at.
A racetrack is more than horses and soft dirt. The drivers often make the difference between a good, safe race and disaster. Still another important factor for the catch driver.
SAFA was the best, because it ain't that the drivers, at the SAFA was a lot of people doing it full time, and they drove a lot. They made a living of it. A lot of tracks, Truro and here, I ain't not knocking the drivers, they're good drivers, but there's more hobby fellas. More people, they got their jobs, they come here and they drive a couple races a week and there, and they haven't got the experience. Home there in SAFA, there it's I'd say maybe 75–80% maybe all did it for a living, and they were driving 5–6 races every night. So, like I say, experience, you get better, and the more experience you get.
Romo is another believer in classification. He says even the best driver, no matter how brilliant his strategy, can't win if he doesn't have the material to work with.
Like you race a horse over their head, don't matter who the driver is. You just can't push that thing across the wire. So I say, I got a big stable, and like I say, I kind of keep them. I try to keep them where they belong. And I race a lot of claimers. That makes a difference too, and it makes it look easier, I guess, when you win, when you're in the easier class. But like I say, the horse, if you haven't got the horse, you just no matter who's driving them, they can't push them across the wire.
It was a rainy night when we were there to talk to catch drivers, the kind of sloppy track that throws handicappers' calculations right out the window. For strategists like Danny Romo, an off-track certainly has some advantages.
You don't have to leave as much, because horses tend to tire more on an off-track, and if they're out battling out a little bit in the front end, they're going to stop. You can get home, and you get more of a chance of going around them than a fast track. A fast track sitting back last. Horses just don't seem to stop now. And you're sitting back last, you got a long way to come. But like I say, on an off track, I find you can kind of sit back off the pace a little more than on a fast track.
I'm Ron Shaw for At the Track.
If you're a regular race goer, you have seen the objection or inquiry sign go up on the tote board, and that heralds an inquiry or investigation into a race based on something the judges saw or based on a claim of foul of interference, usually on behalf of a driver. In days gone by, that was the subject of much discussion because the judges had only one look at it. But modern days, with television cameras, the judges can see that race over and over again. Stan Bergstein back with us once again this week with the story of television at the track.
This is not Mission Control in Houston. It is not the Rocky Mountain Defense Command, and it is not the central headquarters of a major television network. Although the electronic equipment and sophisticated electronics located here would be appropriate in any of those locations. We are at the racetrack, at a racetrack video control center. This one representative of the very best in North American racing, but typical in many ways of all racetracks as far as what the function performs. There are two principal masters served here. One of them is the judges' stand. From this control room and from 4 different cameras that control 4 different angles of shooting of the race, the judges can recall the action from almost any viewpoint on the track, review it, make their decisions from it. And consequently, it is a nerve center of security in that respect and an assurance to the racing public that the judges are, in fact, seeing everything that happens in a race every step of the way. The second master who is served by this system is the public itself. At this particular racetrack, there are hundreds of monitors, and at virtually all harness tracks in North America, there are monitors throughout the racetrack which carry the picture, the pan action of the race to the viewing public in the racetrack itself. In the particular case of the racetrack where you're at, there are 2 other masters being served. This track simulcasts its races, which means that simultaneously with the racing of the events here, they are transmitted through this control room to another racetrack at a remote geographic location. And patrons at that track are watching the action through this system at their racetrack. And the 4th master, in the case of this racetrack, is a television show aired by the track throughout the evening and produced from this control room we're at. So as you can see, there is a maze of equipment. There's a proficient staff of technical assistants here in producing it, and this is where, at an expense of hundreds of thousands of dollars, security and entertainment flow from the racetrack to viewers.
The richest trotting race of 1986 in Atlantic Canada and the richest trotting race ever in New Brunswick was the feature Tuesday night at Champlain Raceway. The Rothman Sire Stakes for 2-year-old trotters. They went after a purse of $10,868. It drew 8 starters in this event, including a stable entry, and none of them were previous race winners. Ron Shaw was there and has the interesting story of Alir Pino, Mr. Trotman, and the Rothman Sire Stakes. Here's Ron.
The Rothman Sire Stakes at Champlain Raceway, a showcase for 2-year-old trotters. A purse of $10,868, the biggest purse for trotters in the Maritimes in 1986. The lineup for the post-parade runs like this. Horse number 1, Colonel Stone, owned and driven by William Henderson of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Number 1A, Big Jim Stone, also owned and trained by William Henderson, driven by Paul McDonald. Horse number 2, Stormy's Chance of Paddyland Farms in Kensington, Prince Edward Island, trained and driven by Jack Bernard. Number 3, Dunvegan, owned by Robert and Norman McLean of Inverness, Nova Scotia, trained and driven by Elmo White. Number 4, Dunmore Crystal of the West River Stock Farm, Antigonish, Nova Scotia, trained and driven by Claire McDonald. Number 5, Milady Fenway, owned by Alir Pino and Ronald Kennedy of Kensington, Prince Edward Island, trained by J. Pino, driven by Alir Pino. Number 6, Alba Will, owned by Robert Skinner and Arthur Mercer in Sydney, Nova Scotia, trainer H. Collins, driver Danny Romo. Number 7, Glenda Ayres, owned by Ralph Anir of Montague, Prince Edward Island, also trained and driven by Anir.
They're off on the inside. Colonel Stone has the lead. Big Jim Stone racing 2, and up on the extreme outside. Glenda Ayers goes 3 wide and challenges 4. Takes the lead as they swing to the turn. On the inside of racing 2 as they move round the turn is Big Jim Stone. They're on by the opening 8th. Glenda Ayers up on the outside. Big Jim Stone in 2. Colonel Stone racing 3. My Lady Fenway moving 4. Dunvegan racing in 5. As they swing round the turn, race on by the opening quarter, 32 and 4. They're off the turn, down the stretch with Glenda Ayers now off stride as they race in front of the stand for the first time. Big Jim Stone on the inside, My Lady Fenway up on the outside, takes command in front of the stand. Big Jim Stone into Colonel Stone racing 3, Dunvegan trotting 4. Glenda Ayers trots once again in 5. Moving 6, it's Stormy's Chance off stride. Alba Will and the trailer. Dunmore Crystal, they go to the turn now. On their way to the half mile and out in front and at the half in 106. My Lady Fenway by 6 lengths has the lead. Takes them to the back stretch for the final time. Dunvegan's moving on the outside, it along the rail. Racing in 3, that's Big Jim Stone. They go on by the 5/8. My Lady Fenway out in front. On the inside, Big Jim Stone racing 2. Dunvegan moving 3. Colonel Stone racing in 4. They go to the turn now, race for the 3/4, and My Lady Fenway all alone at the 3/4, 137 and 2. My Lady Fenway 8 lengths, now it's 10. Out in front, round the paddock turn for the final time. Dunvegan racing 2. Big Jim Stone is moving 3. At the 7/8, all alone and charging on home. That's My Lady Fenway through the lane. My Lady Fenway chasing after the biggest purse for Trotters this year. That's My Lady Fenway out in front and coming to the wire. All alone, it's going to be My Lady Fenway. Here they are in 2:09.
The winning driver, Alir Pino, a man known as Mr. Trot on Prince Edward Island, says racing 2-year-old trotters is hard on the nerves. At least 4 entrants in this race broke stride.
All these 2-year-olds didn't have much experience at the trotting. Some of the better ones weren't eligible to the Rothmans. That's why I'm here tonight. So if they would have been in here, I don't think I'd be standing in front of the camera tonight.
I'm Ron Shaw for At the Track.
Well, the people in modern-day harness racing look at the great horses like Brett Hanover, Albatross, Nihilator, Niatross, Falcon, Sealster, and many more as the champions of the sport. But when you rhyme off the names of the true champions, they go back to the 1890s, starting with Star Pointer, the first horse to go under 2 minutes. Stan Bergstein back with us once again, and Stan is going to chronicle some of the great champions from harness racing and years gone by. Here's Stan and the champions.
Along with the history of harness racing, along with its tradition and colorful past and picturesque beauty, there is a mystery that has gone unsolved for 150 years. Starting in the mid-1800s, a succession of champion trotting mares dominated the sport, beating the best male horses in the world. The mystery is that while 9 trotting mares have been world champion, only 1 pacing mare has ever held the world record, and that was this one, the chestnut, free-legged beauty, Pocahontas, and she set the world record in 1855. Why? No one knows. What is certain, however, is that some of the most charismatic figures of the American trotting turf have been trotting mares, and this is what they looked like. This is the first of the great champions, Lady Suffolk, the old gray mare of Long Island, who, toward the end of her career, inspired the American folk song of the old gray mare, She Ain't What She Used to Be. While she was what she used to be between 1838 and 1853, she was the best-known horse in America, racing in 17 states. As Lady Suffolk's career ended, there were other famous trotting mares, Stella and Alice Gray in 1855, Lady Woodruff, Miller's Damsel and Stella, 1857, and perhaps the most famous of them all, Flora Temple, the bobtailed mare of Camptown races and trotting Civil War champion. Currier and Ives immortalized her in at least 13 different prints, including this one of her battle with Hero in 1856, and this one against Lancet, ridden under saddle in the same year. After that, it was the remarkable Goldsmith Maid, who set her first world record in 1871 at the age of 14. Other great trotting mares followed. Maud S., who dominated the 1880s. Nancy Hanks, who followed her as world champion. The California wonder Sunall, world champion in 1891. And the Iron Tough Alex, who won the historic championship race at the Chicago World Fair in 1893, a race that required 9 heats over 3 days to decide. Then came Lou Dillon, the swift but sour disposition mare who in 1903 became the first horse to trot a mile in 2 minutes. Although Lou Dillon was the last trotting mare to be world champion, she was not the last of the great trotting mares. There were mares like Fresh Yankee, who became the first trotter ever to win $1 million. Keystone Pioneer, who also won $1 million. The great Delmonica Hanover, who won championships on both sides of the Atlantic. Duenna, who won the 1983 Hambletonian. And the great French pair of Rocapine and Undamai, 2 of the outstanding, brilliant trotters of all times. The championship tradition of the trotting mares and the mystery of their supremacy.
Quality and not quantity was what organizers of last week's combined sale of the Moncton Agrena Complex are saying, and they must be right, as the sale was the most successful of the 4 sales held in the fall. A total of 47 yearlings were auctioned off for a sales average of $2,378. The top price colt, Kilkerran Fury, and that's a full brother to Kilkerran Elspeth, a stakes winner of 1986. That went to Wathen Piers of Pugwash, Nova Scotia for $6,000. The consigner was Doug Ferguson of Tatamagouche. The top filly, Windkissed, a full sister to Wind Warning, purchased by Sandy Fraser and Bob Purdy from Norma Kennedy, and that price was $5,100. Atlantic Sire's 2-year-old Trotters in action at Truro on Wednesday next week. Charlottetown Racing Thursday night, Saturday afternoon, and the regular $1,500 feature tonight and every Saturday night at Champlain Raceway. Well, coming up next week, the final edition of At the Track, and we'll take a look at some of the major events from 1986 around the Maritimes, and also we'll recap all about wagering. Until then, I'm Howie Trainer at the track.
At the Track has been brought to you by the Maritime Harness Racing Track Operators and Olin Breweries.